trying. Racism don't exist, they lying. Black youth are at risk, they dying. COVID killing off our fam, daughters under 21, even voted Trump again, still giving job praise. I don't be doing no trap, I don't be doing no drill. All of my brothers are dying. Chicago rappers being killed. Hey, Chicago, what is happening? It is your boy, Tony Briscoe. Welcome back to another episode of Tony Briscoe Live. Thank you all for tuning in. Have an amazing guest today, but before I bring him in, you all know I like to start out with a little bit of news, and that's what we're going to do. First, you all know that I'm all about the community. And so with that being said, I do have some unfortunate announcements and condolences that I would like to give out to those people who are in my community. The first would be to Lionel Harris. He is a gentleman who is on WVON. He is the host of Inspirational Radio that comes on Sundays from 7 to 9. He lost his mother, Dr. Harris. And so, Brother Harris, we're thinking about you. We are praying for you. And I know personally that you will find a purpose in this as you do all things that may not align with how we feel. The second condolence I would like to give out is to my dear brother, Reginald Fleming. This brother has lost his wife, Debbie Fleming. When I say that the world has lost a beacon of hope and light for marriages, Debbie Fleming, there are really no words to describe her outside of laughing and loving. I said in her Facebook group that her husband created for her, Live, Love, and Laugh with Debbie, that Debbie Fleming is a woman that every husband admired and no wife would be jealous of us admiring her. And I can say the same for her husband, that our wives admire him and not one of us, at least not me, would have a jealous bone in my body. And so, brother, we are praying for the Fleming family. And so I did want to make mention of that as well. In the world, as always, we do have a lot going on. Gun violence is stretching throughout the country as much as the Delta variant of COVID is. A Chicago rapper recently was gunned down almost immediately upon his release from the Cook County Jail. According to the Chicago Tribune, local rapper KTS was shot as many as 64 times in an apparent ambush while he was released from the Cook County Jail on electronic monitoring. This week, we also lost a veteran to an alleged attempted carjacking in Chicago. And while I am a supporter of young people and an advocate for young people, I am active on the ground so I can speak to what I know. A 17-year-old and an 18-year-old have been arrested for this alleged crime that caused this man, 74-year-old veteran, to be killed. At what point do we stop saying that it's socioeconomic and deal directly with the need that these young people have for fast money? At what point do we stop, or do we ever stop blaming parents? I'm not here to judge souls, but I am here to judge actions and character of people and the decisions that our young people make. There's always an older person pulling the strings of these younger people. What are the solutions? If you have any while you're viewing, please drop them. Would love to hear what you say. The Delta variant of COVID is wreaking havoc. According to CNN, Dr. Rochelle Walensky of the CDC said, and I quote, "This is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated." I already know my guest has been vaccinated because he did a release as well. And we'll talk about that in a second. She further goes on to state, and I quote, "We are seeing outbreaks of cases in parts of the country that have low vaccination coverage because unvaccinated people are at risk," end quote. And show. We are seeing that COVID is, it's not gone. We are not free from this pandemic, and we probably will never be free from it. But, you know, as I expand this show, I'd love for you to share your resources and experts. I don't claim to be an expert. I like to bring people on, bring people together, and discuss politics, education, music, poetry, arts, fashion, hip hop, and podcasting. So whatever genre you know somebody in who's an expert, please bring them my way. Let's get them on Tony Briscoe Live and expand our reach here together. As you know, I do not promote misogyny or misandry. So please, if you have anything that is bashing men or bashing women, it will not be played on this station, on this show at all. Let's be respectful as you showcase your talent, and we can build this brand together. With that being said, I am happy to bring in my guest for the day. He's a very busy young man. I'll try not to keep him too long, but I'm grateful that he accepted my invite to be here. He is a candidate running for Illinois' first congressional district seat in Congress. He's a young man that I have watched grow over the years, and I'm happy to have him here. So please, let's give a warm welcome to my guest, Mr. Michael Thompson. How are you, sir?
Good, good. How are you?
Uh-oh, I am having a problem with your audio.
No? Okay. Can you hear me now?
I cannot hear you now. So hey, go ahead and work on that. I'm sure it's probably your Bluetooth device. Sometimes Apple AirPods like to do their own thing.
How about that? Is that better?
No dice. Look, let me make sure it's not me, first of all, because it's probably me. I'm banking it's me and not you. Yep, it's all me, y'all. This is my fault. Do not blame this on our candidate. I had my podcasting button turned down. Forgive me, brother Michael. That's all on me, man.
Good to go. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
As I probably could have if I'd have had my button turned up like I should
have. No problem. No problem at all. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I tested everything before the show except that button. So that's on me. That's on me. Hey, so please introduce yourself to the people who are viewing. I'll be completely honest up front. I don't have a lot of viewers yet, but I'm working on that. But even if you're reaching 3 people who are in here, man, I don't care. Like, let's go. Let's get into the conversation and let's expand our horizons. So tell the people about you and your background.
Well, first of all, there's no need to self-deprecate. We all build from somewhere. So you're building something and it looks like you're building something great. So, no need to do that. But as far as me and my background, as you said, I'm born and raised on the south side of Chicago. Grew up in the Apostolic Church of God, where we know each other. Also am a proud product of Chicago Public Schools. But after I graduated from King High School, I went on to the University of Illinois, where I had multiple opportunities to engage in public service and really solidify my desire to want to help the community. Going on to law school, I had a lot of different types of experiences, whether it was criminal defense or immigration and making asylum claims for Syrian refugees. But it wasn't until I learned about restorative justice and started teaching restorative justice in Chicago Public Schools where I really understood how policy can make a difference in someone's life. So ever since then, I really dug into what are some of the most tangible ways to support people. And that's how I kind of got into the workforce development field. In that field, I identify certain barriers or issues that may be in an individual's life and sort of help them alleviate those barriers in order to find gainful employment. And now in my career, I've had the opportunity to coordinate projects with government, nonprofit, and for-profit entities in order to expand and create more hiring opportunities for Cook County residents. And I think that is the skill set that I can use in Congress to bring more funding and bring more resources to the First District of Illinois and really create opportunity for people in multiple ways.
Yeah, great. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate that. I know you heard my intro when I talked about, we've lost a lot of people in Chicago, right? But most recently, one of the horrors of socioeconomic deprivation in communities is, of course, violence, right? Like that's no secret to anyone. Losing a veteran who, you survive Vietnam, you come home and you live and you cannot survive the own city that you lived in. I'm going to paraphrase a quote from his daughter. And one thing she was grateful for. She said she was grateful that while her father was dying, that he did not die alone. There were people around him who were trying to give him life to life, mouth to mouth resuscitation and save his life. And I think that's one of the joys she found while this horrible event has happened. At what point, though, do we really stop saying it's not about the socioeconomics? It's about young men who are just choosing bad choices. How do you dissect that?
So I think there's I use a word a lot called intersectionality, which, there are a lot of contributing factors, right? And what I say a lot of times when I'm posed these questions about how do you address someone who has committed a crime, I think you have to do multiple things at one time. The very basic principle of there being consequences for your actions. I do believe in that, right? But then from, sort of a broader perspective, that person who engaged in a bad act, so to speak, they didn't come out of the womb. They weren't born doing these things. A set of events and circumstances happened in their life. So we have to be able to address and have consequences for people that engage in criminality. At the same time, we have to have those resources that prevent them from re-engaging in those activities, as well as resources that can interject in someone's life before they decide to engage in any of those criminal activities. And that can only come from a combination of not just socioeconomic programs and policies, but also mental health and trauma-related and social service-related policies. Working in Chicago public schools and supporting a lot of different teachers and initiatives in CPS, there are students out here that are third graders, but have gone through more adult experiences than most people over 25 because they're the head of their household, right? So if a child at third grade is the head of their household because they're making sure that their brother and sister are getting dinner from the gas station every night,
yeah,
what do you expect that third grader to grow into if there isn't some severe interjection? They may grow into that 17 or 18-year-old that ends up committing the act that you spoke of today, assaulting an older Vietnam veteran who, no one deserves that type of treatment.
Absolutely.
So we have to do more than one thing, and we have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We have to be able to address criminal acts as they happen, but we also have to have those policies and programs that engage in prevention measures as well.
Great. So you're running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District. Mm-hmm. There are many people who have been supporting the Honorable Bobby Rush for close to 30 years. Like, he entered office in 1993. I don't see him on the ballot in 2022 yet, so I'm not sure if he's decided to not run, or not. And this is, I'll make this disclaimer. We are not here to talk about the Honorable Bobby Rush. It's the reason I put honorable in front of his name. We appreciate everything that Congressman Rush has done and brought to the table. We're not here to bash any politician. Well, not most of them, but you trash. We're not going to go there right now.
Right.
But running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District, why politics for you? Why not continue to do the work that you're doing on the scale that you're doing it right now, ingrained in schools, making doing nonprofit work and for-profit work? Why politics?
So, and I'm glad you made the connection to my work and what I do on a daily basis. So a lot of the funding for what we do in workforce development comes from very specific pieces of federal legislation. Two in particular that fund two major programs here in Chicago are WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, that is administered by the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, and then Community Development Block Grant funding, which is administered by the City of Chicago's Department of Family and Support Services. Because of that, there are a lot of agencies that receive funding to engage in like this type of, trauma-related services, social-related services in order to alleviate barriers that then help people gain economic self-sufficiency. Where I see a disconnect is that we don't give enough resources to the right partners to do the right types of jobs. A lot of these nonprofit organizations are asked to be experts in 2 or 3 different fields at one time, when we all know you can be a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? And a lot of these organizations are forced to have a business model that reflects that sort of thinking, jack of all trades but a master of none, because of the grant requirements. So for me, I really want to be in a position where I can amend federal legislation and federal funding that goes towards workforce development in a way where we are funding programs and organizations to engage in what they're experts at, scale that, and really have a systemic impact on the communities. But as long as you have one person who's a workforce coordinator, and I did this work myself, managing a caseload of individuals, and I have to not just do trauma-related services and, transportation and childcare assistance, but also do business development. So, this happened where I was having a meeting with, a fast food chain to try to get jobs for my clients. And, there was a fight in the hallway between 2 clients, right? Yeah. I have to be able to separate those 2 sort of workflows so that way you have experts in every sphere and you can get the most efficiency out of the model. So for me, that's where that came from, is recognizing inefficiency in the work that I do on a daily basis and kind of just making that connection that if I really want to change it, you have to be in a position in not just state office, but federal office, because it is federal legislation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant, and I think it's genius to be one of the resources. I think I want to highlight one of the very important points you made. You said that the right organizations are not getting the right resources,
Mhm.
which could mean that there are some right organizations that are getting the wrong resources.
Yeah.
And I think
Yep.
that's very paramount for the work that I do in not for profit with a mentoring program. We were one of the few mentoring programs in the city of Chicago that went through COVID 15 months. And I know we're still in COVID, but I mean, if you look at where the money was allocated to and where the money went, a lot of that money did not come to our program. We did get some, but when you talk about the right resources going to the right people who are on the ground doing the work, I definitely understand and know what you mean. I'd like you to explain when you say responsive leadership, because I thought that was really, really interesting. Those are like, for me, really strategic and intentional words. What do you mean when you say that the people of Illinois need responsive leadership?
Yeah, I think, and again, you're going to hear me say this a lot. You'll probably see this in videos in the past and going forward. I think the Democratic Party as a whole has become a little bit too reliant on academic theory and not enough tangible, real world solutions that respond to people's everyday problems, right? And so, what I mean by that is there are a lot of programs here in the city of Chicago, that's a democratically run city, that are public-private partnerships. They'll do economic development projects like building some type of new infrastructure.
Mhm.
But a lot of times what we see is that the impact for the masses is very limited. You'll see a few, executive salaries, sort of a large volume of minimum wage salaries, but there's no addressing of systemic issues in people's backyards. Take, again, economic development or job development. The average commute for someone that lives and then works somewhere in the first district is a 40-minute commute, right? So if I live in the first district, on average, I'm driving 40 minutes to downtown or Oak Brook or Naperville
Right.
or, somewhere in the south suburbs, Hodgkins, one of these places where there's a big factory or, big shopping centers or retail outlets, office spaces, right? None of those opportunities or very little of those opportunities are actually in the first district. Which again is why I feel like I'm prepared to take on this type of work because I've supported, again, in my career, Fortune 500 companies opening up facilities in areas like the South Side and opening up job opportunities for individuals in those areas.
No, that's awesome. Beautiful response. So I'm going to throw a couple of things at you,
Okay.
but I'm quoting you, right?
Good to go. Good to go.
Politics should not be a place for celebrity or the idea of a savior. Politics, whether it is actually this way, ought to be a space where the needs of the people are heard and responded to.
Yep.
Talk to me.
Yeah, I think all of us can agree that in recent years, we've seen a lot of politicians occupy the space of celebrity. And anytime people occupy a space of celebrity, we've seen this, you tend to follow them whether they're right or wrong. If they're right, you root extra hard, and if they're wrong, you equivocate and find a way to make their right seem wrong. And I don't think that's a place for politics. Politics has to be a place where we deal in reality because the people who we serve are dealing in reality every day.
Yes.
And so if as a leader, I'm not thinking with the same perspective and mindset as the people that I serve, then who am I truly representing? So that's the first part about being a celebrity or a savior. But the second part, it goes back to that responsive leadership quote that you mentioned earlier. We have to listen to what people are going through on the ground and then have policies and programs that make a connection between the macro and the micro, the big idea, the big policy, the big project, but then the micro, making sure that big policy or big project is directly speaking to, is directly relevant to what people are going through every day. So, we can help an employer open up opportunities for people on the South Side, but if the majority of workforce personnel that would go into this role are women and they may need childcare assistance, and we're not offering them childcare assistance, that's one of those micro level thinking points that we'd have to consider.
But that's kind of like a holistic approach to, I guess I would say, employment as well, right? And so, America's in a big push right now for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which for some reason is a threat to, I'll just call it white male patriarchy, is what it is. But I think it's I think it's necessary. My opinion is that women should be running the world, but that's a topic for a whole nother discussion.
Good to go.
We talk about changing the guard, right?
Yeah.
Next quote. Sharing the power of the office with constituents through elevated forms of constituent service will be how we provide transparency and legislate from a position of humility through the incorporation of all voices. Break it down.
So yeah, sharing the power of the office. Throughout the campaign, we've been holding what we call people's assemblies, where we go into a community and we listen to those individuals' thoughts on issues and solutions on issues that they see on a daily basis. So that's where incorporating all voices comes in. But in order to truly support people on a daily basis, you have to have very robust constituent service. You know, a piece of legislation gets passed every few years, right? So if I wanted to have an impact prior to any sort of legislative impact, that means constituent service that does things like we talked about earlier, supports those community benefit organizations that are on the ground delivering direct services to residents and helping them with grant applications to be able to scale their programs and increase their funding opportunities. It's, you know, having field reps and case workers that are leveraging technology in ways where we can really analyze and digest concerns from constituents who reach out through email or through letter writing or whatever communication medium they choose. And then taking that data and presenting it in a body like Congress and saying, hey, this is a microcosm of the country based on what's happening in the first district. What can we do as a legislative body to address these issues? And so that's what I mean by sharing the power of the office, is really thinking about leadership in a way where you're taking care of those around you. In the Marine Corps, the person who's the highest ranked eats last because you want to make sure everyone below you is taken care of. So that's really the thought process behind that, is making sure that we have a well-resourced system that can truly listen to everyone, take that data and analyze it, and then operationalize that data in ways that I don't think other congressmen have in the past.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great, and that's awesome. And no shade, but let's not forget that the Marine Corps is a department of the Navy. Wanted to, you know, okay,
understood.
Y'all see that picture in the background there with that Navy guy.
Yeah.
No,
I see.
No, thank you, man, and appreciate your service and your dedication, man. Absolutely, 100%. So when we look at the first congressional district, right, we're talking Chicago, we're talking Oak Lawn, parts of Oak Lawn, parts of Orland Park, parts of Tinley Park, parts of Frankfort, Illinois. How do you plan to sway voters who've been voting for, I'm just going to go ahead and say, over 2 decades on a name versus on policy?
Yeah, I think it's about talking to people and being in their backyard, being in the same room with them, having a presence with them. Whenever you're trying to fight against, like you said, brand recognition and brand notoriety of the kind that Congressman Bobby Rush has, you have to be able to meet people where they are and really like go at their hearts, right? And like you said earlier, we're not gonna bash the congressman. I really look at this race as a generation of Moses and a generation of Job. Yes. We want to take the things that he did early on in his career and sort of advance them with a little bit of a modern perspective to it. And I see no reason why we can't do that without also, honoring parts of his legacy that deserve to be honored.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we stand there with as far as logos, just being respectful to the past, but also really going after the heart and letting people see that I'm in their community. I understand their issues. And to your point about the Southwest suburbs, part of the suburban part of the district, I think those voters down there have felt a little bit unrecognized for a while. And all of us have very similar, as you see on my website, job, development, public safety, and education. Those are the 3 pillars. And I don't think there's a community, not just in the first district, but in the country, that doesn't have those 3 things top of mind at some point in the day.
Absolutely. So politics is a bit different. And I say that because we are in a post-Trump era of politics. Yeah. Celebrity politics, if you will, right? So name, notoriety, celebrity status, those are the things that are getting people in the foray of politics right now. Mm-hmm. How do you plan to set yourself aside from that? And I'll, before you answer that, I want to piggyback on a comment that you made, because, part of my closing statements is about the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. The I feel the African American community in large is at a serious distrust for the Democratic Party. But our voting does not necessarily align with our distrust of the Democratic Party. I think people are fed up, right? We already know that President Trump had a high volume of women and of African Americans who supported him both elections, not just the last one, right? So, what needs to change, in your opinion, in regard to, I don't want to say change, what could help the Democratic Party relate more to the people outside of we just feeling that they just want our vote, but they don't really want our policies?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier about that too much focus on academic theory, and things that may test well in focus groups in coastal areas, but aren't what most people living, for lack of a better term, regular lives feel and see. I think the election of Eric Adams of mayor of New York is a good example, and he said this in his interview with George Stephanopoulos last Sunday, that the Democratic Party should take note of what he did by him focusing on the crime problems in New York and focusing on what everyday New Yorkers were thinking and feeling. He was able to win out on individuals that had a lot more name recognition than he did, Andrew Yang in particular. And it's because he focused on topics and issues that matter to people. And as long as the Democratic Party is not focused on topics and issues that matter to people, or are not willing to translate why certain issues matter to people, then we're always going to lose out on voters. If you want the average voter to care more about climate change, talk about how climate change is actually a contributing factor to rising prices in the grocery store. That's something that matters to a single parent who is using a lot of their check to feed their children on a weekly basis, and may not have the time to research the best ways to recycle or conserve energy, or may not have the money to turn their home into a energy efficient home through solar panels. They're just surviving every day. But if you tell them how these big issues connect to their survival, then you'll be more likely to get their support and make them an ally. But if we're just going to lecture and sort of berate individuals that aren't automatically on board, then we're always going to be sort of in a secondary position to other parties, the Republican Party, that does sometimes, artificially, through a lot of falsehoods, claim that they are thinking about people's everyday lives.
Yeah, no, that's great, and an amazing response. So I want to give you just some time to speak freely here. I want you to talk to the citizens of Illinois, specifically, all of us specifically, but definitely those specifically who are in the 1st Congressional District.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're elected, which I believe you will be, because you're my guy. I'm supporting you. Got some other folks I hope to bring on. I mean, there are 5 candidates running for Congress as far as I see right now, including the famed Jamal Cole, who's a phenomenal young man in Chicago as well. For you, I want to just give you space to speak directly to the people. I'm going to just make the screen just you, why they should vote for you, what your action plan is for your first 90 days in office. And I'm sure a lot of that will be learning the rules and regulations of Congress. But just talk to the people about you, why they should vote for you, and your action plan for your first 90 days in office.
Let's go. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Michael Thompson. If you're just tuning in, candidate for United States Congress here in the 1st District of Illinois. And I believe you should vote for me, not just because I'm a son of the district and a product of the public resources in the district, but because my entire life I have spent in public service. And I believe that the experience that I bring to the table is a direct correlation to the experience that a congressperson should have. The ability to listen, being humble in the way I come up with ideas and the way I approach other individuals, and then having the ability to take complex machinations of government and then create a through line to how that can help others in their daily lives. In my first 90 days of Congress, one way I hope to accomplish this is through an amendment to the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act that will better align with our Chicago, or not just Chicago, but our public education system. I wholly believe that schools are undervalued assets in our community, and through a proper federal investment into our public education system, we can alleviate mental health and social trauma issues that sometimes lead to the school to prison pipeline. We can support our workforce development and labor issues by making sure that graduates of our public education systems have the right skills that can enter the workforce and be productive citizens. And overall, we want Americans to feel like they have an ability to engage in the system that we've created and have a fair shot. And unfortunately, in our country's history, we have not always lived up to that promise, whether through intentional or unintentional structural failures. However, by again having that humility to take inventory of a situation or circumstance, listen to the individuals that have experienced it on the ground and all the problems that there may be on the ground, and then coming up with policies that are directly relevant to those problems that the citizens have articulated, that is going to be the only way we can truly solve problems going into the future. And that is the mindset that I would bring to Congress. So I thank you for your time, and I really appreciate you listening.
Did you all hear that, people? This is not somebody who's just flying off the cuff and talking. He is focused and he is ready to take on this responsibility. How can people support you in your campaign?
Yeah, well, they can always go to the website, votethompson2022.com. That's votethompson2022.com. We would always love donations, but another way you can support is if you would like to get involved, please go to the Get Involved page and ask to schedule a People's Assembly. People's Assembly is an opportunity to host a sort of town hall forum with myself and a network of your choosing, and really ask questions or, articulate to me what you believe is important to the district. Again, this is a great way for me to meet individuals as well as learn from their experiences. So you can donate at votethompson2022.com or host and schedule your own People's Assembly, which gives us all an opportunity to listen and learn from each other.
Man, Michael, this has been great. And I hope this is not the last time I get you on, especially when you're congressman. I'm gonna be like, hey, man, he's one. No, man, it's been a pleasure to have you on.
I got you.
I'll continue to follow your campaign, and I'll continue to make some calls here locally as well to some folks to see if we can maybe get something done at the library on your behalf that's here in Beverly, to see if we can get you over there and set up something with constituents here to have some kind of town hall meeting. I think they would appreciate that. I know I would love that. And so I'll see what I can do for you in that regard. I want to thank you for coming on to Tony Briscoe Live. I appreciate your time, and I'll continue to follow you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. You got it. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Have a good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. You just heard from first congressional candidate Michael Thompson. He is running for the office that is currently being held by the Honorable Bobby Rush, who has been a long-term serving congressman in Illinois since 1993. I believe, if I'm wrong, please, y'all pull my card on that later on. But I think if he makes it to 2023, he would have 30 years in office. And so I believe that is correct. So Michael was a fascinating young man. And because I am all about equity, I will reach out to the 4 other candidates who are also running for congressman to see if I can get them on the show as well, to hear what their platform and their policies are as well. So I appreciate you all tuning in, and thank you, Mr. Aristotle Williams, who's out there. As I close, we understand that politics is no joke in this world. In a post-Trump era, there are people pushing to bring him back for a 2024 campaign run. Democrats and Republicans have never been more disengaged, discombobulated, or at odds with each other in a post-Trump era. The Republicans, Trump. The Republicans undermine minorities in politics. Truth relaxes under misaligned policies. Trump. The religious undermine a majority of politics. Trump. Trump really upgraded misogynistic politics. Yet, we can't forget that there were several women and African Americans who supported President Trump. And will they be there to support him in 2024? If he runs, we already know that he won the CPAC poll by, I think, 70%, but I don't know how many folks participated in that poll. Whatever. For many, he was a stark contrast to the failed promises of the Democratic Party. Now, I know I have to put some data with these statements. The Democratic Party has been accused of luring a large number of minorities, specifically African Americans, to vote for them, and yet policies don't come through for us in a timely fashion. An example of that, well, we've already in 15 to 16 months passed an Asian American hate crime bill. But what's up with the Emmett Till lynching act? I'm just saying. We see that in Illinois, there has been zero uproar about having a mandatory curriculum for Asian Americans, which we should have. We're not going to get into the building of the West Coast just yet. But when we talk about critical race theory, when we talk about Black history in schools, it has been met with racism from school leadership across the country's parents and students alike protesting. Why? Because sometimes when it comes to African Americans, people think we want a handout. People think that we're lazy. We built this country. It is clear we're not lazy. 90% of the things that we use in this country were stolen from African Americans. Those are facts. And I believe it was the French president who said that 90% of Africa's riches are in European museums. So when you talk about who's lazy, when you talk about who's pilfering from who, let's think about that. It's your boy, Tony Briscoe Live. Thank you all for tuning in. It has been my birthday week. Thank you all for the wonderful 50th birthday. Congratulations to me. Yes, I don't take it by mistake that being an African-American male in the inner city of Chicago and making it to 50, it is a miracle. And I thank God for that. And I'm happy to celebrate with my friends from high school who are all turning 50. Hope to see you all on August 7th. Until then, people, in whatever you do, be safe, be encouraged, and don't be ordinary. We got enough ordinary people in the world. Be extraordinary. Thank you for tuning in to Tony Briscoe Live. I am out of here, and peace.